Did anyone ever think we would reach like 3 of these movies, let alone 8? We are now on the 8th Fast and Furious movie, which started off as just some street racing criminal types, and now we're here, like, just doing all this insane stuff. The Fast and the Furious franchise really has taken a turn, and you know what? Since Fast and Furious 5, these movies have been consistently enjoyable. I've really enjoyed them since The Rock came aboard. I think he really saved this franchise. So now we've reached number 8. I was really actually quite looking forward to this movie because of how much I enjoyed 5, 6, and 7. And you know what? This movie doesn't disappoint if you are a fan of this franchise. I'm not going to say it's the best one of the franchise, but this movie stays consistently enjoyable, just like those other 3. Now, do not go into a Fast and Furious movie expecting it to make sense, expecting, anything of proper quality. Just go in expecting some dumb fun, some good action, and that's what you expect from this movie, and just that family dynamic, and that's what you get from Fast and the Furious. But I was surprised with this movie because I went in and I knew I'd seen the trailers where it's like Dominic Torreto's gone rogue, but actually the plot behind that is actually really good, surprisingly. And there's a lot that happens in this plot, and there are some major things that happen that would go into spoiler territory, and I just wasn't expecting that. And I feel like this movie was a lot deeper than it could have been, and I actually really appreciated it for that. I actually was quite engrossed in Dominic Toretto's story in this, and the story of his crew going up against him. So the basic plot, without spoiling anything, I'm just going to talk about really the plot that you probably already know, and that is Dom and Letty are on their honeymoon in Cuba, and it opens up, like, the first scene of this film is really cool. Like, we always get these cool opening race sequences or action sequences, and they sort of went back to the old street racing ways of the Fast and the Furious, and the first race in this movie is really something quite cool. But automatically I watched it thinking, yeah, Dominic Toretto should probably be dead. Like, a lot of times in this movie I was thinking that, but hey, I throw all logic out the window. In my eyes, these characters are superheroes, so whatever. No need to question it if you think in that way. But yeah, it opens up, and he meets a mysterious woman in Cuba, played by Charlize Theron, called Cypher, who has a plan that's not really too big of a plan. Like, I feel like her motivation wasn't really there, but I'll talk about her later on anyway. But she has something on Dom that we don't know about, that we may or may not find out about, and she has him go up against his crew. She blackmails him, and what we get is basically a sort of cat and mouse sort of thing where Dom's the villain this time, but really, there's something more going on in the background. So we've got The Rock teaming up with Jason Statham, because as Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody says, they're the only 2 guys who have ever been able to track Dom. So we then go on like a road sort of cross-country road trip sort of thing across all these continents to find Dominic Toretto and stop Cypher's plan. And that is really the core basics of this movie. But I feel like the actual motivation behind Dom doing what he was doing was really well done, and I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting it to just sort of be like, oh, he's blackmailed and he does what he's got to do, but he's a good guy anyway. But the actual plot behind it is really good and really something that you won't expect, and I really like that. Now, I've got to give it to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The dude is so good. Like I said, he's the best thing that's happened to this franchise. I feel like Luke Hobbs is definitely the best character in this franchise. And in this film, he really is the standout, along with Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw. Those 2 together, the chemistry is just flying. Like, from the first scene that we've seen in the trailer when they're in the prison and the prison riot, I feel like that wasn't as good as it could have been, because the sort of the fighting, I mean, it was really cool. It was a really cool sequence, but I feel like the action itself, like all close cut together and stuff, I didn't feel like it worked all the time. I feel like there was a bit too much shaky cam. But, F. Gary Gray, I think his name is, he directed Straight Outta Compton, so I wasn't really expecting him to be that great at doing action scenes anyway when he did that movie, but for the most part the action sequences were really good, apart from, all the shaky cam that we got in that scene, but it was still a cool scene. But anyway, from that scene, when they first see each other in this prison, like, the chemistry and the sort of the banter between them is so good and so funny. Like, they were definitely the best characters in this, and they worked so well together, and that was great. And Vin Diesel actually is really good in this film. Like, I don't really see him as a good actor, I just see him as an action star, and he's good at being an action star. Triple X aren't very good movies, but Vin Diesel really takes it. And yeah, in this movie, he really does have like more of an emotional performance to give to us, and that was great. Like, I mean, in Fast and Furious 7, the dude made me cry with his ending monologue, but in this, you really feel for him in the movie, even though he's like the villain of the movie, and then you feel for his team going up against him. I mean, I do sort of feel like they underutilized some of the team, like Roman and is it Tej? And even Letty, to an extent, they sort of don't have too much to do. It's more of a story about The Rock and Vin Diesel. Because you've heard of that feud between the two of them, they don't really share a lot of screen time together. Like, there's a lot going on. They're always against each other in the film, but they're never really in the same scene, which was actually quite interesting to see because I've heard of what happened behind the scenes. So yeah, I was just quite interested in that. But yeah. The action sequences themselves from New York, when we see the crew try and take down Dom in New York, all the way up until, the final scene in this Russian sort of, I guess it's like a military base, there's like a submarine involved. All of those action scenes were really well done, and it all looked really, really good. Like, they really, there's not a lot of hand-to-hand combat, which I quite appreciated, because I feel like the scenes that aren't hand-to-hand combat are done really, really well. And the action really is turned up. Like, this is definitely one of the most over the top of the series, and I feel like just from here, like, where can they actually go? Because they've done everything now. I've heard of talks of them going into space, and if that happens, I'll be the first to go and watch it, because it'll be so dumb, but so great. And that's what this movie is. It's really dumb, it's pretty stupid, but it's just so much fun to watch these characters. And yeah, Paul Walker really is missed in this film, and I know you can't help it, that tragedy did strike during the making of Fast and Furious 7, but you really do miss the dynamic between him and Dom in this film. But I feel like Dom worked quite well with, Vin Diesel worked quite well with Charlize Theron, and she was probably one of the better characters. She was one of the standouts as well. She really is like a Bond villain, There's not too much that she does in terms of action, but she's always behind the scenes, tweaking things, and it was really good to see what she was doing, and I really liked her in the film. So yeah, and I'm not going to spoil what happens during the final sequence, but there's a scene with Jason Statham on a plane, and maybe another returning character, who knows, but they're on a plane, and it's just like, this is one of the coolest sequences I've seen in action films for a long, long time. And also, we do get to see Helen Mirren in this film, who plays just such a funny role. She's not in it a lot. She's in it for a very short time, actually, but she's hilarious. Like, so yeah, this movie, it's funny, it's fun, it's actually quite deeply emotional in certain scenes, and it's obviously, it's not perfect. None of these movies are. There are problems to be had with it, but if you're just going in thinking of it as a dumb, fun action movie, you're going to really enjoy it, and if you like all of the others, you're going to love this one. There's no doubt about it. So, The Fast and the Furious, you know what? It's still welcome in my eyes. If they bring out like 10 more of these, I'll still go and see them. I mean, probably 10 would be a bit too much, but yeah, I would still go and see them because they just continue to be consistently fun. And if they carry on to be as fun as this movie was, then I am well into that. Can't wait to see more of The Rock and Jason Statham and Vin Diesel. The feud between the three of them in the movie, where they go up against each other. It's really, really great. And I hope that Vin Diesel and The Rock sort things out, because I need to see, more of them in these movies, because they are great. So, Fast and the Furious, it's come a long way, but what do you guys think? Do you think the changes that they have made are welcome? And what did you think of Fate of the Furious? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.